drive a Beyblade. I know it ain't right, but good times rhyme with war crimes. Yeah, his buddy's got bite. I take him right to the fight. We're fighting the danger, and I got all kinds of anger. A ball of hate, 20 kilos in size. That's Boris the remorseless. The good times rhyme with war crimes. The bark and the bite and the Beyblade. Good times rhyme with war crimes. The bark and the bite and the Beyblade. Oh no, I'll pay 20 kilos in size. That's Boris the remorseless. But good times rhyme with war crimes. The bark and the bite and the Beyblade. Good times rhyme with war crimes. The bark and the bite and the Beyblade. We're out to Cadia, the Beyblade crusade. It was he that I rode when I knew we'd lose that day. They're breaking into our base. The galaxy's destroyed, the leashes have changed. Turn to make them all pay, you can't be contained. The worst POO, they ain't missing it. When I'm kicking it with him, Boris the remorseless. I gave a cheery yell, that's good times rhyme with war crimes. The bark and the bite and the Beyblade. Good times rhyme with war crimes. Good times rhyme with war crimes. The bark and the bite and the Beyblade. Good times rhyme with war crimes. Armor is made, steel reinforced out of magic owl. With a sweet ceramic finish just to piss off the opposition even more. Because obviously we'll never get the Senior straight. Leech protected by Boris the remorseless, the good boy. Even if it's hell. Bark and the bite and the Beyblade. That's good times rhyme with war crimes. The bark and the bite and the Beyblade. Good times rhyme with war crimes.
She's okay. She's okay. War Pugs. My wife is one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. Like, one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. She is the first person I have ever seen to break her ankle when she's walking across level ground, and she tried for Busted Ankle Flat Ground Part 2 Electric Boogaloo now in stores because she was walking across level ground.
I'm walking on gravel.
Level ground.
Gravel move.
But, guys, she's okay. We got her inside. Her legs are hurting just a little bit. But, yeah. Profit.
You think it's a little bit. I can feel it.
Profit. Anyhow. So, guys, yeah, so quite simply put, there is, there's been a lot of falls at the old house lately, but it's all good. She was out there actually taking care of the chickens. We've been putting out some videos on her channel, things like that. She's been doing a little bit of shorts, stuff like that. But we're going to be getting the duck enclosure expanded out, which is going to be great. And we're going to be digging a small... Night, you're kidding. Fan uploaded? You got to be kidding me. There's no way. There's no way. But anyhow, we're planning on doing that pretty soon. Those should be arriving like Tuesday or Wednesday? Tuesday or Wednesday, right? Hello?
What?
Tuesday or Wednesday?
And we're doing what?
Tuesday or Wednesday, the rest of the materials for the pen are going to be there.
Wednesday.
And we have a duck. We have a duck that you guys have probably seen it. It's Pickles. She's the
I was sharing all kinds of videos in Discord earlier.
Yeah, the Pickles is probably a jumbo peking, which means that she's going to have problems getting around because she's too big. She's just too big. We were worried for a little bit there. We were concerned for a little bit there, but it looks like today she was moving around okay once we managed to get her out of her pen. Once we got her to the area that we're going to be expanding to, where we're going to be basically digging the pond and everything like that, this looks like it's going to be good. just a disclaimer, the second thing you did Saturday, you watched Two Girls, One Cup.
Ew.
Prophet, why you... I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to tell you later about that, because there's something funny about that. No. Duck meat is actually pretty good, Slacker. We've had duck before. It's our intention, because the one duck is going to be so big, she's almost the size of a goose at this point, was to have her kind of like be the protector, you know what I mean? But, and we do intend to eventually harvest animals. We just weren't intending on this one. And you don't name any animal that you intend to do that with. You just don't. So, we were kind of worried there for a little bit. We were kind of worried there for a minute. But like, she's going to be fine. She'll have a nice little pond here in a little while. And then, yeah, we'll be good. We'll be good to go. You have a lot of regrets, Prophet? You should. You should. You really, really should. Meep, you sent me a paragraph about Vanos. Just a disclaimer for more Vanos stuff. Be prepared to edit more for them because their old stuff generally has modern YouTube doesn't like stuff modern YouTube doesn't like. Get off there, cat. Go. Like the F slur in one skit. You know what? I'm just gonna tell you guys completely, just absolute honesty. If you look at the old YouTube, and even more modern YouTube, like J Daddy and stuff like that, you're going to see stuff. You're going to see and hear stuff like that. It's just a different time. Like, different time, different everything. Another first for Prophet, yes. Weird. You still have to do the fake video from Wendigoon? Oh my god, Weird. You have no idea. You have no idea. There is so much. There is so much. I actually was doing some cataloging a little bit earlier. There is a lot I have to do, but there's something in... Come here, you.
Oh, poor cat. She usually is over here sitting on my shoulder.
Now, can you explain to them why you're harassing me constantly right now?
Because I want pets.
You're jumping up on everything. You're being annoying.
I want more food.
I know she wants more food. Is there something that you need? Something that you need intrinsically? Go on. Once chickens start laying eggs, you stop laying eggs, you butcher for the meat. Actually, Slacker, when we go next weekend, we're going to be going and we're going to be picking up some wood. We're going to be doing something called a chicken tractor, and we're going to get specific chickens for that chicken tractor.
Yes, but also the extra roosters are going in it because they will be going to freezer camp.
Yeah. Wow, you gotta say it like that. She says the extra. We have 2 roosters that we've named. One is Rockstar, the other one is Fred.
They're the ones that we're keeping.
And those are the ones that we're keeping. The rest of them are going to go to, as the hospitaler puts it, freezer camp. Freezer camp. Really?
Yep.
Really? Anyhow. But guys,
there's my cat.
It's time. It is time for part 2. Is it the same as the chicken nuke mine? I showed her that. That is the best. She's a cat, that's why. Yeah, pretty much. The Belgian Malamus and the Boxer Mutts, yeah. It doesn't surprise me, Prophet, because this one, she just hates everything. She hates everything.
Except me.
Thank you, Peanut Gallery, with 4 legs. She hates everything with 4 legs. No, it doesn't matter what it is. Guys,
that's true.
Episode 47, part 2. You think Fan uploaded something about a beer I was owed or something? He's sorry for bending the bat. Meep, I have a lighter. I will burn you, okay? I will find a can of some sort of aerosol product and turn it into a flamethrower, jerk. What?
Hairspray flammable.
Hairspray's flam? What? Okay.
I have hairspray.
I have no hair, so it doesn't really fit. But
it's an aerosol, you dimwit.
Eh? I have morning recap scented candle. I'm good to go. Guys, let's get into it. It's been a long time coming. You got an arc lighter, Jesus. All right, Slacker. I need to check out that thing about the most powerful laser. I honestly do. Hey, babe. Cody says the Roosters could join the Boiler Corps.
That's about the same thing.
There we go. All right. All right, guys. X in chat if you're ready to get going. Speaking of which, Borg, the hospitaler wants to have rabbits, and we're gonna convert. If you saw my truck video, we're gonna convert the camper top into an actual thing for the rabbits, and that's gonna be called the Bunny Bunker.
Yep, that was the name I came up with.
So we got the Bunny Bunker, we got Cluckingham Palace, and we got the Quack Shack. Let's go. Oh, and I'm starting on Sword Art Online. Anyhow. Abridged. Alright, mate. Your daily supply cart reminder, all my best friends are all supply cups and armors. Do with that what you will. Dude, I don't know what you even want me to start with that. What are you going to do? Start building together the Deathcore Creek? I don't know. Thanks, Prophet. Quacker... Did you see that from Meat?
Yeah.
Did you see that from Meat?
Yep.
Quacker Barrel.
No, Quack Shack.
No. Remember how we were saying we were gonna build Pickles their own little spot?
Oh yeah, we can call it the Quacker Barrel.
Quacker Barrel.
Yeah, 'cause she's gonna have to go on her diet.
Yeah. Use all AI videos to do this to claim. Really? Oh my God, that sucks. Because of claim issues. That is so Oh wow, claim issues. I wonder who else is having massive problems with the company because of that shit.
Ahsoka twitched, fingers flicking in an uncoordinated way against the hilt of
New
her
microphone.
lightsaber as her thoughts trampled over each other, mind racing behind her wide blue eyes. But try as she might, the young warrior simply couldn't see how she could do anything without making things worse.
Furnace.
She shuddered out in a whisper, tone uncertain as she watched the tense scene unfolding before her. Obi-Wan seemed marginally less stunned than his friend, but it still took him a moment to recover from the suddenness of the near hostilities, and the fact that none of it was directed towards his side. The former Padawan knew that Kenobi was used to playing mitigator. Being a master to Anakin and friend to Ahsoka meant he had little choice in the matter.
When the kids are fighting constantly. Prophet, thanks, bud. How about this? A duck named Nuggies and a chicken named Goose. We already decided that when we get turkeys, we're naming them Christmas, Thanksgiving, and just cuz. Hobbit, thanks, bud. I appreciate it. Thank you, Meat.
Behind his blue eyes, Obi-Wan was like 20,000 reeled-up springs, each tense,
That's a lot of
coiled,
springs.
ready to be released in the prevention of any foolish actions or words his allies might suddenly sling out.
Oh, I know, Jack.
Or any hostile movements the Imperials may suddenly react with. Every single one of those prepared mental countermeasures now strained against his discipline, each spring vying for release. And yet, he had no prepared actions or forethought concerning a situation in which members of the Imperial delegation suddenly turned on each other, and in a way which left him virtually uninvolved. Ahsoka, herself frozen, watched as Obi-Wan took a breath and allowed for a moment to pass in order to absorb all that had just occurred. After a couple of seconds had passed, he coughed into his hand awkwardly and began to speak.
Do you need a minute?
He started to mildly suggest, only to be harshly cut off.
Yes!
Barked the woman in the red coat and the tall hat.
Now, be quiet!
She finished before turning to orient herself towards where Farnes stood, still aiming his gun into the back of the tech priestess's head.
Guardsman, I'm giving you one chance.
The scar-faced woman grated between clenched teeth. The formidable Imperial slowly stood up, her massive gauntlet whining and sparking with small, crackling cords of blue lightning. Ahsoka almost joined in, though Obi-Wan's warm hand grasping her shoulder helped her to take control and keep her mouth shut. She had no idea why Farnes was doing this right now, but clearly there was more to the situation than she could grasp, and the young former Jedi had a strong feeling that, if she did try to intervene, it would almost certainly hurt more than it helped. Instead, Ahsoka was forced to content herself with biting her lip and remaining silent.
Stand away and lower your weapon or...
The red-garbed woman began to elaborate, but this time it was Farnes who did not let her finish.
Commissar, I'm in charge of the prisoners and their safety.
Farnes interjected, his voice trembling only slightly.
And I have reason to believe Tech Priest Aurora Sigmas may intend to harm Tech Priest Nerva Sharp.
He explained, his eyes never leaving the half-machine woman before him as she worked on Nerva. The monitor screens glowed in the shrouded dusk light, revealing her life signs, each one displayed in increasingly erratic patterns across them, growing less stable the moment she had been removed from the Bacta. Nerva's unconscious body hung in the empty tank by the harness that had suspended her in the fluid. Aurora's mechadendrites holding the younger tech priest's arms out and to her sides as her senior continued her medical work. Meanwhile, the Commissar eyed Farnes dangerously, her movements slowing but never quite ceasing.
There's a lot of supposition in that sentence.
She growled at the guardsman,
Yeah.
rounding the table and getting closer to where Farnes and 1313 stood.
Forgive me, Commissar Liros, but for the sake of a duty I will not fail. I can't. They won't back down.
Okay, those are words that a commissar would understand in most cases. I will say in most cases.
Farnes insisted, sweating, heart racing, though his gun did not budge, his aim perfectly centered and remaining that way. The Commissar knit her brows together in one of the deepest, most menacing scowls that Ahsoka had ever seen. And indeed, it seemed she was done speaking. Striding angrily towards the trio with increasing speed, Ahsoka had no doubt that this quote-unquote commissar would have ended Farnes' life upon arriving beside him, if another among the delegation had not acted to stop her. Lazarus stood up in a rush, slamming the table with his metal fist and drawing nearly all eyes back to him.
Knew Durasteel was the right choice.
Ahsoka muttered to herself, though not too loudly, as she watched the sudden stillness spill out from the act. The saint let the silence he had wrought hang in the air for a couple of moments, his prosthetic hand retracting from the teeny dent he had created on the table's smooth surface. Farnes winced and broke his forward stare, craning his neck to glance back at Lazarus, the commissar also halting in her steps.
This
The skull-faced saint intoned sternly.
is not the time nor the place.
He scolded,
You're arguing in front of the Jedi! You're making me look bad in front of the space wizards!
raising his voice, almost yelling. He looked at the guardsman and gave Farnes an almost imperceptible nod, the young man swallowing hard in response and looking forward again.
Commissar Colonel, leave it be.
Lazarus ordered, voice wary. The woman named Liros spun in evident disbelief, her face stricken as she turned to look at the saint.
Holiness, he's...
The commissar began to rebut. However, Lazarus barely gave her the time she needed to start for cutting her off.
He is acting in a direct capacity to ensure the safety of a very important person.
Lazarus finished for her.
And he has my permission to do so. Sit down. Let the work of both Private Farnes and Mago Sigmas be done.
He ordered, staring down Commissar Liros for only a couple of seconds before succeeding in drawing a grudging nod from the Commissar, who then did as instructed.
Alright,
The
good.
one-armed soldier, however, did not move an inch, nor did Farnes, both men holding the barrels of their respective weapons firmly against the head of the one threatening their charge. One of those charges, Aurora, was, by contrast, quite busy and very active. Her form a coordinated mass of overt movement enacted by her functioning arm and her many mechadendrites. Interfacing with Nerva's neural links, the senior tech priest's skull drones buzzing closely at hand, Aurora began to defragment Nerva's entirely overloaded memcore, buying time for herself to make other adjustments as she did. Farnes' eyes darted as time dragged on, both delegations waiting in tense silence. Sweat beaded on the guardsman's forehead as he tried to both maintain his aim and keep an eye on Nerva's vital monitors, which occasionally fluctuated and wavered in heart-seizing ways.
True,
The
like,
younger, one-armed soldier, by contrast,
like if the family isn't fighting, it's not a family reunion. It's not worth a honey-baked ham Christmas.
remained stoic, his eye still a steel, his pistol steady and ready. The minutes seemed to stretch into an eternity, Ahsoka growing more and more nervous throughout. Adrenaline was cycling through her blood, a warm, nervous energy that wanted so badly for her to act, to do something. A familiar hand touched her shoulder again, and she looked to see Obi-Wan staring back at her with a reassuring expression, though nothing she could quite call a smile.
Patience.
He advised, speaking softly.
We can afford to wait, and we
True,
benefit
Knight.
from learning all we can.
He reminded her. The Togrutan warrior hesitated for a moment before nodding. That was true, even if it did not feel that way to her. In Ahsoka's mind, it felt like their time was running out, as if every boom of distant lightning was the ticking of a massive timer, only mere minutes from landing on midnight. Breathing in deeply and then slowly out to calm herself, she subdued these tensions.
You're right.
She said back.
A Jedi's first weapon is knowledge.
Ahsoka further affirmed, the intonation managing to draw a small smile onto the wary and wounded features of her former master's master.
Ahsoka will become a blood raven. Yes or no? Because we're only a few words from knowledge's power, guard it well.
Seeing that, she reminded herself that despite what she may feel, the former Jedi knew that Master Kenobi was right. Had to be right. Patience was the key here, and she would not fail for lack of it, no matter what her gut was telling her. Taking another cue from Obi-Wan, she focused more on learning what she could from all of this. At first, she had wondered why so many Imperials had come, but now the truth was slowly revealing itself to all three Force wielders. This Imperium was not as united as it liked to put forward, and if at least half of the people attending were representatives, then that would mean their government was no single authority, but rather composed of different power blocks which all had checks on each other, enough to warrant equal representation. And, from the display Farnes had been putting on, these different power blocks were at least distrustful of each other, if not direct contenders with one another. And in that, the former Padawan found a line of attack, metaphorically speaking. If her first weapon was going to be knowledge, then she would need more of it. Clearing her throat,
That's rather presumptuous of Ahsoka. The correct... somewhat.
she raised her voice and began to speak.
Okay.
While we wait,
Ahsoka began to suggest,
Party
firming
tricks!
her jaw and her resolve, keeping her voice steady. The eyes at the table turned towards her almost at once, most of them hardening hatefully at the sight of her appearance.
we should introduce ourselves and who we represent.
The young woman advised the delegation. Obi-Wan grinned subtly
True conquest.
and nodded his head.
That will also
Ronnie.
allow for us to verify that we have no extra attendances at this meeting.
He added, not missing a beat.
I agree. We may as well begin these formalities while other matters are concluded.
Said Jocasta
Exactly,
knew,
Hurricane.
with a deep nod of her wizened head. The Imperial delegation was silent, looking inward towards the large man and the saint at their center. The black-eyed giant nodded towards the masked leader of the delegation, evidently passing the decision to him fully. Lazarus paused, eyes empty yet focused behind the eye sockets of his glittering skull mask. After a couple of airless moments, he lifted his gaze and nodded, the motion alone making Ahsoka flinch slightly, feeling that strange, repulsing presence wave up and down across her as he did.
Very well. You complied with us by handing Nerva Sharp over. Whether she lives or dies, I do intend to go forward with these talks, if for no other reason than to secure the safety of the others.
The skull-faced saint admitted, standing as he did, pushing off of the table to help raise himself.
As I already stated, I am Saint Lazarus, and in this delegation I am representing the faith of the God Emperor, as,
He began to explain, though the final words seemed to catch in his throat somewhat.
as, living saint of the ecclesiarchy.
That's the first time he's actually referred to himself as such. In an official capacity. I can understand why he would stumble over that. Prophet, your daily reminder that Anakin is effectively the War Master of the Republic and Kaon is in effect Erebus. The Skywalker heresy is coming. And also the demon is nearing. Yes. And when he shows up, if I do not hear that stupid song, I Am the Storm That Is Approaching, I'm going to lose my mind. I will play it for him. I will do it for him.
He finished, ending with a
Thank you,
resoluteness
Prophet.
that he clearly needed to summon up. Ahsoka wondered where his hesitation had come from. He was not an old man, still relatively young, but the obvious senior of the one-armed soldier and Farnus. Was he an imposter? A stand-in? Or perhaps he was still adjusting to his position, which of course would imply that he was new to it.
Beside me is Sister Leandro Ordain, my advisor and protector.
Lazarus went on, gesturing towards the armored woman who stood just behind him and to his side. She said nothing, only offering a half nod to the Jedi across from her. The woman's dark eyes glittered ever so slightly, with what almost seemed to be gold flecks floating within her irises. Those same eyes locked with Obi-Wan's in a very distinct way, and Ahsoka could feel something pass between that stare they shared.
Ah, yes. We've met.
Obi-Wan stated a little stiffly, affecting a wince as he did.
I take it then that you are the two religious figures among your contingent?
The Jedi followed up, peeling his eyes away from Leandra's stare, and almost wincing as he redirected them towards the even more scalding, masked glare of Saint Lazarus.
No,
Was the man's quick answer as he gestured towards the Bacta tank to where the droidified woman kneeled attending to Nerva. The tech priestess did not respond right away, as eyes turned towards her, busy with the task at hand. But a servo skull soon lowered between them, near the center of the table, and began to speak in her voice, even as she continued her medical ministrations.
I am designated as Magus Aurora Sigmus.
She said simply.
Why is the toaster lover French?
I represent the Adeptus Mechanicus in this confluence. We are the faithful of the Omnissiah, the keepers of the uncompromised truth, the hunters of the sacred knowledge.
Red Vampire King, I saw that on my feed before I went live, and I almost had a stroke. Yeah.
And the enactors of the will of the machine god. Saint Lazarus represents the ecclesiarchy, the common faith of the imperial masses, and the cult of the flesh-enthroned incarnation of the Omnissiah. We serve the same power, but we are not the same.
Sama.
Ahsoka's eyes widened somewhat as several pieces of this puzzle
Shut
came
up,
together.
Prophet.
Wait, so you're not derivative faiths? You're different beliefs altogether?
Look here, you heretic.
she asked, looking between St. Lazarus and Magos Aurora's hovering skull droid. Though the droid seemed unaffected, St. Lazarus had a distinct look of distaste on what was visible of his face.
By the Emperor's own decree, we tolerate one another, for the sake of the Imperium, the Forge Worlds, and all mankind.
He concluded. Ahsoka leaned back, a small smile playing across her lips. So tolerance was in their vocabulary after all. Ahsoka did not know about Obi-Wan, but for her, that was a massive discovery all on its own. The Jedi Master in the center of the Republic's delegation rubbed his chin.
I can see why you think that, but it's not the boon you think it is.
Considering the possible implications and functions of this revelation.
Oh boy.
So, perhaps your relationship is best described as something akin to the Jedi Order working alongside the Haypens.
Master Kenobi ventured hesitantly.
We are nothing like you.
Thank you.
The red-garbed woman hissed with a sneer. Ahsoka sensed a chance and jumped on it, nodding to her and leaning in.
Then make it more clear for us. Help us to understand.
The former Jedi insisted. She received an acidic, scar-faced sneer from the Imperial woman in response.
Your ignorance is not an enemy I am charged with destroying.
Was the tense response Ahsoka got back. The young warrior grit her teeth, crossing her arms and leaning back and away in her chair.
Oh, well, that's helpful.
She said with a roll of her eyes.
I'll be glad to be as unhelpful as I possibly can when it comes to witches, heretics, and Xenos.
The commissar shot back, taking obvious satisfaction in any frustration she could cause.
Abhuman.
Ahsoka corrected coldly.
Ooh.
Or so you say.
Ooh.
The relentless Imperial countered with a dismissive wave of her hand.
There's nothing like a diplomatic talk without people getting catty. It's nice.
The Togruta scowled, brows scrunched together tightly.
And who even are you, anyway?
She asked, indicating towards the woman with an exasperated gesture, bending forward in challenge.
Who do you even represent? You're talking a whole lot to just be a bodyguard.
Ahsoka snapped. Lyros stood to her full height, scowling as she loomed over the seated younger woman. Ahsoka had faced Mandalorians and other warriors before, and she knew well how to keep her cool even in the face of such a glower, even if doing so was less than easy.
Yay! Fan actually wants to explain that the Magos TTS is Italian because it's the closest to Latin. Hi, that available to give her a Martian accent? That actually works, ripoff. That actually works, but for some reason she's French this time. I don't know quite why that is. I don't know quite what that is. I am... Maybe some sort of... I don't know. I have no idea. Prophet! Given Lazarus' upbringing and prior position to his newfound authority, his explanation of their history is far too analytic? Perhaps. 1 second, Warpugs. 1 second. Everybody decides to reach out to me at the weirdest times. 1 second. Oh my God. There we go. Okay, give me a second. Even if Ahsoka is abhuman, she is unsanctioned. Yep. She is unsanctioned activity. But you know what, Prophet? That really depends on you. That really depends on you. I'm just saying. It depends on which one you turn to. Just saying. 1 second, guys. Hello. Yeah, I'm live streaming right now. Oh, hold on a second. Say hey to everybody. Go ahead, don't be shy now.
Who are you talking to?
everybody, say hey.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're having a marvelous Monday and a blessed day.
Is that Mama?
Yes, Mama. I'm going to get back to it. Well, I'm going to get back to it, all right, Mama? Love you too. Bye-bye. Parents. Let's go.
Yet, the eyes within the Imperial's scarred face bored into her like two pressurized drills.
There is no way she doesn't practice that stare in the mirror.
Ahsoka thought to herself as she withstood the withering glare.
I am Commissar Colonel Jane Leros, and I am here to stand for the Astra Militarum.
The fearsome woman answered through clenched teeth.
Astra.
Somebody please get this commissar a little bit of a break, okay? A little bit of a break. Just a tiny one. You're at a diplomatic affair. You know, cinch back the hate about 5 seconds. You're in a diplomatic affair. You should learn from Caiaphas Cain.
Militarum?
Obi-Wan asked, trying to cut in.
We are the soldiers of the Imperium, the first defense of our Emperor, and often the only defense that is needed. Upon 1 billion worlds, we stomp flat the vermin who threaten our Lord's dominion.
She intoned, her voice deep as she held her head high, her back straight, her eyes still locked
Maybe,
onto
like, that might
Ahsoka's.
work.
More like whoever threatens your ego from the looks of it.
Ahsoka thought to herself, though wisely voicing none of what she thought.
Yeah.
She thought. And yet, more of it must have shown on her face than
Not
she had
a clue, Jack.
As Leros's scowl deepened, her eyes carving deeply into Ahsoka's own.
Ah, so you are my counterpart.
Obi-Wan began to say again, trying to draw attention away from Ahsoka and back to himself.
Uh-huh.
It did not work.
Oh boy.
And by what right, by what perverse flaw of sanity, does a heretical Xenos witchling sit before us?
Oh boy, somebody get this woman. Somebody get this woman and get her to chill out, Lazarus. Come on, man. You're supposed to be leading these talks. Like, oh my god. Fun fact, Ahsoka once decapitated 4 Mandalorians in one move. To be fair, they thought that she was helpless, but it was instant death. Hobbit, I'm not surprised. I am not surprised at all. Ahsoka is, from everything I know about her, a remarkably powerful Jedi former Jedi in terms of her martial prowess. And she was trained by Anakin. So there's something. Yeah. Ahsoka, I didn't anticipate a roast.
Commissar spat, pointing a massive metal finger at the former Jedi.
What could it possibly represent?
She demanded to know.
How?
Ahsoka felt her face flush, heat filling her cheeks and chest. She rose, both hands on the table, her sudden movement causing Obi-Wan to flinch, a hand raising to rest on Ahsoka's shoulder placatingly. But she would not be calmed, not cowed in the face of this genocidal, racist madwoman.
My name is Ahsoka Tano.
She snapped back at the red uniformed delegate.
And I am here representing the people of the Republic, the aliens and the humans.
She declared, several eyes of the Imperial delegation growing wider at the proclamation.
I am here to speak for any who are beneath the protection of the Grand Army of the Republic or the Jedi Order, and yet who are not part of either. The lives who give meaning to everything around us, and the people your military is brutalizing. That's who I represent.
The Togruta almost yelled in her face.
And again, I'm an Avhuman, not a Xenos.
She hastily added, remembering well the importance of the distinction, especially if she wanted these negotiations to mean anything.
Oh boy.
Lies!
Lyros hissed right back. Ahsoka
In the last one, I was kind of critical of Obi-Wan trying to play the cute game and all this other kind of stuff, and I kind of had an issue with that because it was like, look, it's not time to be cute. These guys don't play this game. The Commissar needs to sit her ass down. I'm just saying. How powerful a sucker would you have to be to fly into and disassemble a house piece by piece in seconds? Any beta grade psyker could do that. Maybe even Charlie.
blanched.
Lies.
She echoed, stunned.
Which part?
Oh boy.
The young warrior demanded to know, face reddening, unused to being so openly accused of dishonesty. The very act sending subconscious shocks back to the only other time in her history such a thing had happened.
All of it! Whatever would serve you best, witch!
The Commissar continued, leaning forward more, almost frothing at the mouth.
Nothing any of you say can be trusted!
Lyros insisted, glaring around the table at the other two Jedi.
Okay, so this is the Commissar you want. This is the Commissar that you want dealing with the penal regiment. This isn't the one that you put in front of a bunch of people trying to be diplomats, okay? If the Imperial delegation isn't officially behind one leader, the negotiations are going to fail. Yes, they are going to fail, Prophet. I mean, are you not paying attention?
Least of all you! How do we even know you are actually Ahsoka Tano, the same one who sent the message?
The iron-armed Imperial railed, face flushed, pupils narrowed to pinpricks. Ahsoka raised her bandaged hand into Lyros's face, the Commissar seeming like she might bite into the proffered palm of the former Jedi Padawan in response.
Want to test my blood now?
The Togruta asked, voice thick with mockery.
Won't be satisfied until you've spilt more of it?
Ahsoka shouted, gritting her teeth when she was done, a fierce scowl covering her painted features. One the woman across from her reflected back like a cruel mirror.
That
deep voice said,
"Hey, Omega.
Will not be necessary."
Finished. Ahsoka was surprised, then, when it was the Imperial Commissar who broke eye contact first. Drawing away from their standoff to look over at the man who had spoken. Ahsoka followed her gaze, stiffening her muscles to keep herself from cringing as her eyes met the cold black cores within the eyes of the new speaker.
Hello again, Ahsoka Tano,
said Samael, now standing and gesturing with a dismissive wave for the Commissar to take her seat. Face reddening further, jaw tightening,
she
did so without hesitation. The act alone making a declaration. Obi-Wan, of course, already knew the man from the field of battle.
Yeah.
His eyes
when the Inquisitor starts talking, it doesn't matter how pissed off you are.
Following him as he rose. But the Jedi Master had to subdue the surprise he felt at learning that Ahsoka had met him as well. Ahsoka pushed off of the table, standing straight back as she nodded to him. What could she say? The last time this man saw her, she was, ostensibly, carting away an Imperial head in a sack to use as a trophy, implying by her fangs that she may well eat it. If anyone here had right to call her out on being a horrific alien, it was likely him.
Yeah?
Are you as surprised to see me here as I am to see you?
Ahsoka finally managed, her face burning only a little as she spoke. The man's expression remained lax as he shrugged his shoulders.
No.
The massive man said, shaking his head and grinning, though only slightly.
Saw you back there with that servo skull, the one in the sack. Then heard your name again when St. Lazarus pitched the formation of our little delegation. After that, I knew I'd find you here. I have an eye for talent and for trouble. None of it slides by me.
Samael explained, crossing his arms. Ahsoka blinked, her expression melting into one of relief.
Saw through that, did you?
Again, the large man shrugged his enormous shoulders.
The thing about it is, he is the one person here that could probably choke slam Ahsoka through the pavement. I'm just saying. And he's the one person here that could torpedo this entire thing. Like, he could torpedo this entire thing, but he knew. He knew.
Lack of blood on the set, obvious sensor protrusions, sway that could only come from an active suspensor thruster. And besides, you're a Jedi. Even if you did take trophies or eat human heads, the common reputation of the Jedi would more or less prohibit you from doing so openly. Combine that
Ronnie.
with my assumed identity and the company I was keeping, and it was easy enough to put together the basics.
He nodded his head, eyeing her appraisingly.
Most would have relied on their implied authority or threats of a thorough lightsabering to keep their cargo safe. Your willingness to employ less direct methods, combined with the work it would have taken for you to assemble this little meeting, well, let's just say that it speaks to the presence of those traits I noticed earlier.
Ahsoka smiled then, crossing her arms and tilting her head.
Talent? Or talent for trouble?
She asked back.
Both.
Yes.
There we go.
Was his easy answer. A wider smile spread across Ahsoka's face, and she did little to constrain it, particularly when she noticed the state of the Astra Militarum representative.
Ha!
Lyros looked like a woman whose head might explode, the lack of evident hostility that the big man was treating Ahsoka with being an intolerable display for the staunch Imperial. Yet, something kept her from interfering, from even voicing a word of disdain. Even when she had begun to do so in the face of Saint Lazarus.
Prophet, not really. Inquisitors, despite how they're marketed, to a lot of people, a lot of Inquisitors, especially members of the Ordo Xenos, will know many representatives of Xenos races. Many representatives. It's kind of like a rules for thee, not for me moment when it comes down to it. Now, anybody dealing with the Ordo Xenos as the Xenos themselves knows full well that that representative would gladly skin them with a butter knife. But it is not in any way, shape, or form uncommon for an Ordo Xenos representative to have many contacts with Xenos themselves. It's kind of a thing where keep your enemies close situation with them.
That did not slip Ahsoka's notice, nor Obi-Wan's or Jocasta's. Although the delegation presented St. Lazarus as their de facto leader, it was becoming clearer and clearer to the Jedi present that this was only the case because this man, who had introduced himself as Samael hours ago, allowed it. His physical presence was the most imposing, and even more than that, when he spoke, all others withdrew and waited.
So,
yeah, Ronnie, there have been several instances where wars were prevented by Ordo Xenos agents. You've got to remember one thing about the Imperium as a whole. The Imperium has too many wars to fight at the same time. It has too many areas of responsibility. So, yes, there are Ordo Xenos members who will facilitate peace talks between Xenos and the Imperium. Now, this is not going to be widespread knowledge, but you've probably read a novel or two, or you will see a novel or two, where there are just certain places that are known Xeno strongholds that are there. the Tau would be one of the greatest examples. The Votan, you have a few others. Right off the top of my head, I believe there's one. I can't remember the exact pronunciation of it, but it starts with a Y. They will have either outright non-interference or non-aggression pacts with them put in place, and as long as that Xenos stays bottled up, the Imperium won't crush them like a bug. And the reason that is the case is because of the amount of threats the Imperium faces on a day-to-day basis. You got to remember the only reason the Tau survived to begin with during the Damocles Gulf Crusade was because of the appearance of the Tyranids. The Tyranids were what basically kept the Tau alive. It happened in the Kane books, yeah, Light Doggo. It has happened in the Kane books more than once, actually. It's happened more than once in the Kane books. It also happened, I believe, it might not have been directly mentioned, but it was alluded to in the Eisenhorn series. So it does happen.
Oh, which of those two do you see with me, Samael?
Isn't there like a lot of aliens that are allowed in the Imperium? No, Captain Silver. No, not at all. The Cabal is all dead. The Alpha Legion wiped them out, MO1.
If that's really your name, I mean.
Ahsoka asked, eyes narrowing.
Like I said, a fair bit of both.
He sighed, scratching the back of his head.
And yes, that is indeed my name. I am Inquisitor Samael Weiler of the Zektek Inquisitorial Triumvirate. And as my titles suggest, I am here representing the Emperor's Inquisition in these matters.
The large man explained, placing a hand to his chest and giving a shallow bow to those assembled.
And I'm...
The slender woman standing behind him began to say,
Hecate. She is acting as my bodyguard in these proceedings.
Inquisitor, Lollipop Girl, Eversor.
Samael interjected, holding his hand out to the side, a gesture which caused the cheerful Imperial to come up short on her sentence.
Aw, Sam, but I wanna...
She began to go on, but Samael was already speaking,
nice,
moving the conversation along.
And who, if I may ask, are you?
He queried, gesturing towards the aged, regal figure of Jocasta Nu with one of his large hands. The elderly woman sighed very softly, closing her eyes and rising from her seat with a fluid grace which, while simple, spoke of impressive control to all who could appreciate it. She opened her pale, gray-blue eyes and spoke with an instructor's cadence.
Yeah, Silver.
I am Jedi Master Jocasta Nu,
she said, spreading her hands and bending her knees to perform a slight curtsy.
I am present to represent the Jedi Order itself.
Hooray.
The old master elucidated.
Prophet, you really disagree with the idea that the only reason the Tau survives is because the Nids, over half the ground force of the initial invasion fleet, was wiped? Not so much half, probably about I'd have to go back and look at the numbers again. But you gotta remember one thing, Prophet. They were waiting on reinforcements that just never came. They had already landed Titans, they were already committed. The reinforcements that were supposed to be coming, they were being redirected towards the Tyranid threat. It was a thing. The Tau were on their way to extinction. They didn't have a navy left. They had ground forces, but at the same time, the Imperials, at any point, if they had the time and decided just to do it, it would have been a done deal at that point. At the stage the Tau were at when they first fought the Imperium, they were a breath away from extinction. And the only thing that saved them was Kraken.
To the Imperial's presence.
Thank you, Prophet.
The Saint leaned forward then, a slight ripple moving through Jocasta's composure as his focus landed squarely upon her.
Does the Jedi Order not control the Republic? Are you not lords of these worlds and armies of false men?
Lazarus asked, gesturing as he did to the area around them and to the clone guards. Ahsoka could almost feel Rex tensing up, muscles tightening within the pale confines of his armor in order to stop himself from responding, though externally he showed very little.
Alright, Auntie, you have a good day,
No.
okay?
Jocasta said, speaking the word in smooth, perfect High Gothic.
Oh!
We are the defenders of the Republic, not its rulers. We are tasked with commanding the clone armies in order to return order to the galaxy.
The elderly woman laid out, explaining enough while being concise. Ahsoka knew that the librarian was trying her best to be truthful, while not exposing too much information to the Imperials. After all, everything the imps may want to know could become a chip on the bargaining table, and giving them away for free was not in the Republic's nor the Jedi's best interest. The young warrior made a note to remember that and to try to guard her speech as closely as Master Nu was managing to.
Hold!
The commissar interjected.
If the Jedi are not the leaders of the Republic, then who on Holy Terra is?
Lyros demanded, leaning forward as she did.
The Republic Senate.
Obi-Wan answered
In other words, Creamy Sheev, because he is the Senate.
smoothly.
Our member worlds elect or otherwise decide upon a representative, who is then sent to the Galactic Senate. There, senators vote on motions that control the policies and actions of the Greater Republic.
The Jedi Master explained.
And how do the Jedi fit into this? Why am I speaking to you and not to one of these senators?
Saint Lazarus asked.
Because you would have probably tried to kill them. I mean, this is a thing. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Sheesh. The Damocles Gulf Crusade was in 742, same year Behemoth invaded. If the Imperium committed its force against the Tau, the Bell of Lost Souls would have told 1,000 times for the Lost Sons of Ultimate. Yes, Prophet, that would have been the case. That would have been the case. Yes, very much. Hey, Benjamin, what's up, bud?
The Jedi Order predates the Galactic Republic.
Jocasta Nu began to lay out.
Our organization is dedicated to peacekeeping, the enforcement of justice, and the pursuit of knowledge. When the Galactic Republic rose, it was observed that their system of governance resulted in the least amount of tyranny, abuse, and violence. So it was decided that we would support the Republic and safeguard its institutions for the betterment of the greater galaxy.
The elderly
Okay.
master went on.
Very
Lyros
good.
cocked her head and spat down into her side.
Oh, boy.
Your Republic sounds more and more like members of the Tau degeneracy every moment that I am made to tolerate your words.
Yes.
Commissar almost growled.
Indeed, I've heard this kind of propaganda before.
Oh, yeah.
Affirmed Saint Lazarus.
It is the most interesting
nodding
part,
his
yeah, Hobbit.
skull-faced head. Ahsoka felt a flare of indignation, opening her mouth to retort, though the words did not come to her, at least not soon enough to speak before Lazarus began again.
Who are your species rulers? The dominant life forms of your republic?
He pressed.
Mm.
The Togruta shook her head in his direction, taking her seat as she made to answer him, all others who still stood aping her shortly after.
We don't have a dominant species in the Republic.
She began to explain.
The Galactic Constitution guarantees equality among all sentient species. Humans, Twi'leks, even Hutts are all held to be equal in the Republic. We're judged by our deeds, not our parentage.
Ahsoka explained, feeling a twinge of frustration at the almost blank stares Lyros and Lazarus gave back to her.
Yeah, like you're explaining completely, like, oh my god, like this what she is saying right now, is completely alien to them in more ways than one. Because every time the Imperium had any interaction prior to the Imperium, of course, any interaction with Xenos, and even still when they have any interaction with Xenos, it is still, oh my god, levels of it's usually screwed.
That's not logical.
Magos Aurora's skull intoned.
Uh-huh.
Logical.
St. Lazarus said, sarcasm thick in his voice as he leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms.
That's anarchy. Chaos.
He concluded.
It's not!
Ahsoka contended.
Then what species controls your republic?
Lee Ross demanded, slamming her fist down into the now well-dented table.
No, Mark, the Eldar would... Okay, I got one thing to say about that. The current wars on Armageddon, the second and third war, Orc Wars. The Orc Wars are Armageddon. The Eldar would kill you for a Klondike bar.
Stop protecting them!
She railed.
I'm not!
Ahsoka snapped.
We really don't have any such thing as...
She began to insist before another, deeper voice cut her off.
Oh boy, here comes the veil getting ripped off your eyes. Prophet, a little fun fact, at the time of the late Clone Wars, the Republic was enslaving some alien races. They had become the Empire long before the order was given. I did not know that. Oh my god. Billy, that's... Okay, thank you, Prophet. Billy, what you need to understand about the Imperium is the concept of a federation of alien species getting along with the aliens not trying to take them over is something that only a small group of Imperials actually ever saw happen. Actually, it was the only thing they actually saw. Like, the only people that actually saw that were the Interrex, and even then, the species that the Interrex were part of, the Kennebract, tried to conquer the humans first. And then, of course, you have the, I think it's Diaspora? The Diaspora? A collection of Xenos and humans that were on a fleet-based civilization. And the only people that saw them were the Emperor's Children and the Iron Hands. I'm just saying.
Humans,
said Samael, not looking at any of them as he leaned back in his chair.
Back this up just a slight bit.
I'm not!
Ahsoka snapped.
We really don't have any such thing as...
She began to insist before another, deeper voice cut her off.
Humans,
said Samael, not looking at any of them as he leaned back in his chair, fishing out a glow stick from one of his many pockets and lighting it.
Nice.
Excuse me?
Obi-Wan asked shortly after, killing the brief pause that followed the
Nice.
word.
the Republic is ruled by humans. They are the dominant species. We are the dominant species.
The large Inquisitor stated, drawing on his now lit cigarette, and then breathing out a large cloud of smoke up into the above-stationed repulsor canopy.
There we go.
As he watched the effect of the smoke on the repulsor field with interest, Lazarus and Lee Ross almost gawked, clearly expecting that answer least of all.
I'm afraid you are mistaken.
Obi-Wan said towards Samael.
Yeah,
While it may
Antikira.
be true that Jocasta and myself are human, we do not represent any sort of racial...
He tried to explain, but Samael did not let him finish.
And now, this is going to be interesting because Samuel comes from the Imperial perspective and he sees what's really going on here. He sees what's really going on here. Here we go.
The Senate has more humans in it than any other single alien species. Your current Supreme Chancellor is human. The man I fought before, General Windu, is the highest-ranking Jedi Commander I've found so far, and he is human. 64% of surveyed occupied worlds are considered to be owned by human-dominated cultures. and the homeworld of the Republic, the hosting place of the Galactic Senate, is Coruscant, a planet that is largely regarded as being the homeworld of humanity.
The large man rumbled, cutting through Obi-Wan's denial.
The dominant species of the Galactic Republic is, therefore, humanity.
And this is the thing. So somebody was saying earlier the Imperium needs to realize they're not in their galaxy. To the Imperium, the Galactic Republic is stripped bare of all the lies it tells itself about what it really is, about who it really is. Because look at the Trade Federation. Look at the Trade Federation. Look at what led to the rise of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Look who dominates the inner core of the galaxy in terms of politics and everything like that. And look how they treat people in the outer systems. It is a human-dominated and human-centric galaxy, flat out. And they don't want to see that. They really don't want to see that. But it is the case.
He concluded, a potent finality in his statement.
Inquisitor, my lord, how do you know all of this?
He was paying attention.
Lazarus asked, shocked at how much the Inquisition seemed to already understand about their enemy, even ahead of this meeting.
Thank you, Ripoff. The corporate sector had always had slavery issues, whether or not they were honest about it or not, depending on which corporation or planet within the sector you were dealing with. Exactly. Completely. Yes.
Obi-Wan and Jocasta both looked at each other, nearly as
Thank you,
surprised
Ripoff.
as they were, though Ahsoka didn't seem fazed in the least. Samael smiled, glow stick clenched between his teeth.
The Republic has something, like a public noosphere.
He began to explain.
The HoloNet.
Ahsoka groaned, resting her face in her hand. Samael snapped the fingers of his free hand and pointed at Ahsoka.
That's the one.
There we go.
He acknowledged.
We've been knee-deep in it ever since we arrived on New Cadia.
The Inquisitor went on.
Has he been using things for research purposes? Like Krypton? It's a fair question.
Amazing, all the information they just make available. The Republic does not consider itself openly to have a dominant species, but that is only for the benefit of the Xenos who live and work within it. All signs point to one reality. The Republic is all but directly dominated by human interests.
Samael concluded, expelling another cloud of shimmering blue smoke as he did.
But that... With all due respect to the Inquisitor, that makes no sense.
Commissar Leros contested, almost standing up again. She gestured urgently towards the clone troopers standing nearby.
Prophet, it's literally to shove in their face exactly how weak they are. This is a power play by him. This is a power play by the Inquisitor to basically be like, this is how easy it is to tell everything there is to know about you. This is how easy it was for me to figure out all this about you. Like, this is also him saying, I didn't get this from guessing. I got this from just looking on your internet. The equivalent of Optimus Prime saying, we learned how to speak English from the World Wide Web.
If humans were truly the rulers of the Republic, then why would they use these thrall armies to face us?
The Imperial warrior
Here comes another truth bomb.
Commissar, it's not your place to.
St. Lazarus began to say, some fear notably creeping into his voice.
No, it's all right.
The Inquisitor interjected.
Commissar, despite the fact that we all know these soldiers are human replicae, you acknowledge something that the Republic simply does not. It is because of that this makes no sense to you.
He explained.
And what do I acknowledge?
Lee Ross asked, clearly struggling to bite off her aggression.
That they are human at all,
was Samael's rumbling response.
Hello!
Lee Ross and the rest of both delegations were shocked by the words, but the Inquisitor did not stop there.
In fact, you acknowledge even more than that.
He went on.
You acknowledge that they are sentient beings, fully thinking and living. By contrast, the Republic considers them neither human nor people.
The massive man stated through a cloud of escaping smoke.
There goes the flamethrower right there. Damn! Okay. That's it. That is it. The Clone Wars can be seen by them as Xenos rebelling against humans, and Palpatine set up this way that allows the rise of human centrism that was under the surface. Exactly, MNO1. Exactly. Samael just hit them with the hammer. It's down, okay?
That's not true.
Ahsoka snapped, clenching her fists as she scowled.
Indeed, we do not consider the clones any less alive, or any less of a person than we consider anyone else.
Really? Do you?
Obi-Wan stated, backing Ahsoka up as Jocasta Nu nodded.
The Jedi Code does not exclude the lives of the clones. They are noble warriors, and we fight alongside them because we trust them with our lives. They are comrades, allies, and above all, our friends.
To you, the Republic themselves doesn't give half a damn about them. Half a damn about them. At all. At all. This is what happens when somebody who doesn't care about you breaks you down. Hobbit, the Kenobi series was very meh. Best, but the scene of Obi-Wan meeting a 501st veteran banging on the street was the best part. I did not see the Kenobi series, Hobbit. I have not seen that. I will check that out. I will check that out. Thank you, bud. Yeah, clones get treated like shit in canon. No kidding. Abhuman the Scrug. The Inquisitor's calling out the Republic's hypocrisy, and you just know he found Yoda's search history. Please, I don't need to think any more about Wookiees. I just don't need to think any more about Wookiees, Abhuman. Eleanor Fangirl, there are a few Jedi would say anything. Thank you, Abhuman. Thank you, Hobbit. But yes, Thor's Hammer, Garrick is one of my favorite characters of all time, precisely because he sees the BS for what it is. And, yeah.
The elderly Force wielder explained.
Perhaps that is true for the Jedi Order,
Samael said, shrugging as he did, still leaning back in his chair.
But that is not the case for the wider Republic.
He finished, drawing on his glow stick as
there
he
we
did.
go.
That is not true either.
Yes, it is.
Obi-Wan retorted, to which Samael scoffed, reaching into his long coat and smoothly withdrawing a civilian datapad. With an errant flick of his wrist, he sent the pad precisely skidding across the table, where it came to rest right before Kenobi.
Oh, the
Go
seats!
ahead and find me a single piece of legislation that guarantees anything for the replique.
Oh, he brought receipts! He brought receipts from their own damn Senate! He brought receipts! Oh!
The Inquisitor challenged. Ahsoka felt her mouth go dry. She did not know if that datapad could actually connect to anything, given the present state of their surroundings, but more importantly, the former Padawan was keenly aware that it would not matter. Whether Obi-Wan could or could not access the HoloNet, he would not find anything to answer the Imperial's challenge with. She knew because she had looked after departing the Jedi Order and becoming quite dependent on the HoloNet for news and information.
Oh, he brought receipts.
Ahsoka was well aware of the fact that the Republic had completely failed to make any preemptive legislation which would protect, provide, or even account for the clones once the war was won. Despite what was said on the Galactic Constitution, the clones were seemingly exempt from the definition of sentient creature, as Samael had said. Ahsoka had no idea how Obi-Wan would answer the Inquisitor's challenge, and was almost relieved a moment later when he did not have to. Before the silence could stretch too long, a mechanical, accented voice spoke up between them.
It is done.
The tech priest announced abruptly. Aurora finally straightened up, Nerva's vital signs stabilizing. A gasp escaped Farnes as he watched the monitor readings become consistent.
Ripoff. To be fair, Obi could have argued the clones' right are covered by the same laws as everyone else's, no need for their own law. Untrue in practice as that might have turned out being. Ripoff, very excessively true, but the clones were created to fight a war, and that's all they were created for. They were a creation of the Republic itself. And they were nothing more than tools to be discarded. They were the Thunder Warriors of the Star Wars universe. They were, strictly put, the Thunder Warriors. Used to serve a purpose and then instantly discarded for a better, not maybe a better option, but a more useful option at the end of the day. Exactly. Yes, the Jedi are not above Xenocide. They are not above Xenocide. Period. Ripoff, thank you, bud. Like, this... I wondered if the Inquisitor... I wonder if Samuel was going to basically point some of this stuff out. Fan did a really good job of basically... This is the truth of the Star Wars galaxy that everyone kind of glosses over. But it takes a civilization as harsh as the Imperium to basically say, look, to basically be like, look, this is what you are. This is exactly what you are. And all the high-minded ideals you ascribe to are all just BS and sugarcoating.
The elder tech priest's mechanism.
Now, granted, by a morality measure, the Star Wars galaxy is gargantuanly better. Gargantuanly better than the Imperium in every way, in terms of social strata and everything like that. But at the end of the day, they have things that they'd rather not look at in a clear picture. You can count on all your fingers? Alright.
Dendrites retracting from Nerva's body. The young soldier paired the act with one of his own, lowering his weapon as he finally freed his eyes to look to his side at the gun barrel aimed into his head. 1313 held his position for a moment longer before lowering his pistol slowly, doing so without any obvious sign of relief or affect. Ahsoka released a heavy breath, almost as heavy as Farnes's, though her relief was tempered as she sensed that this tense scene might be resumed very soon. Nerva's tank was rolled to the side, the labor performed by some clones before Farnes took over, now standing next to the tank.
Well, that was somewhat dramatic.
Obi-Wan said as the tech priest took her seat once more.
And now that is over,
Samael added, leaning forward and steepling his fingers.
let us cut to the chase and begin these negotiations.
Now that Thanksgiving has become remarkably uncomfortable over at the Star Wars Senate House. Ooh.
Larkin sat rigid in his alcove, eyes darting from one display to the next, fingers poised over the controls like a skilled pianist waiting his part in the orchestra to begin. But there was no music, almost no sound at all. The air devoured by a tense silence that was nearly as loud as a scream. The low hum of the station's systems was the only noise, broken intermittently by the faint creaks of machinery settling into the Golan defense platform.
No matter what Padme thought about it, the fact was, if you look back at the first movie, she only decided to partner with the Gungans when she actually needed them, and no further. Did anybody see any Gungans in Naboo's cities past the point where they were used to win a war?
His gaze never left her own monitors, as locked to them as Larkin was to his own.
True, Declan.
And even Jekkar had abandoned his usual nonchalant demeanor, leaning forward as if expecting something to burst from the screens, which reflected in his wide, red alien eyes. It had been 10 minutes since the yellow alert. Larkin had sent out persistent communication requests on the primary comms channel, waiting, watching for a response.
Still nothing?
Jekkar muttered, breaking the quiet, his voice a low buzz.
Still
Letter,
nothing.
Antikyra, you have a nice night, bud.
Larkin confirmed without looking up, his voice taut. The door to the bridge slid open with a soft hiss. A singular set of heavy footsteps cutting through the quiet and announcing the somewhat lumbering presence of the CGG overseer. Baloresh waddled in with the slow, unbothered steps of a man more concerned with picking his last meal out of his teeth than actively overseeing this station. His deep, green Twi'lek skin gleamed under the lights.
Oh boy.
And he carefully cleaned one of his canines with a toothpick held between two stubby fingers as he approached the center of the command deck.
True,
his
Buck.
thick, slug-like leku wrapped around his shoulders. The smell of rich food clung to him, a reminder of whatever he had been feasting on before the alert had pulled him here. Blue-skinned Denora quickly stepped forward, the usual brightness in her demeanor somewhat dulled by the general mood around her.
Yeah, Alistar, they showed up in the Clone Wars to back up the clones on Malkala. Yeah, true. Where were all the humans that volunteered to fight alongside the clones? Or was it just the people that were considered expendable?
Still, she offered...
I mean, I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying?
him a bright smile as she handed Balo a cup of fresh calf. Still smiling weakly, Denora stepped back as if wary of being
Cowabunga it
too
is, Jack.
close to the rotund figure.
Oh, thank you, dear.
Balo grunted, taking the cup without so much as a glance at her. He blew on the surface of the drink, the steam momentarily clouding his view as he sauntered past the center point of the command deck and strode toward the front viewing port. There, through the thick, wide, transparent steel window, Coruscant could be seen far below, glittering like a ball of pure spice on its night side, and its sunward side bathed in the soft glow of Coruscant Prime, revealing an ocean of swirling details and polished architecture. To either side, distantly through the window, were the hulking shapes of the other Golan defense platforms, which hung in the void, their silhouettes stark against the blackness of space, like gray shadows in the night. Prayerson stood stiffly as Balo approached.
Overseer Resh, we've tried to re-establish communication with CGG-1 and CGG-2 multiple times, but we've received no response. All staggered attempts have completely failed.
Balo sipped from his cup and waved a hand dismissively.
What about the flamethrower attack on the Geonosians, Hobbit? Thank you, bud.
Standard glitches and lazy crew,
he said through the steam of his drink.
Contact low control and tell them to get a B5 ready alert.
He ordered casually.
Roger.
Jekkar chirped, beginning to do just that. Prayerson's jaw tightened, but she kept her composure.
This is where the
Sir,
fun
it's
begins.
been over 10 minutes since we initiated Yellow Alert. We've run multiple diagnostics on our own systems. There's nothing wrong on our end.
She insisted. Balo shrugged, still evidently unconcerned.
You lot always jump to conclusions. I'm sure CGG-1 will check in soon enough.
He reasoned as he turned toward the viewport, gazing out into the starry expanse.
Press X if you're concerned.
You'd think the other CGG overseers would get their crews in shape after everything that's been happening. Probably scrambling to find some of that embezzled maintenance fund.
He lamented, but as he spoke, Balo's words faltered. His brow furrowed, eyes narrowing at
X if you're
beyond the
concerned.
glass. He took another sip of caf, slower this time, his easy smirk vanishing as his gaze locked on to the distant shapes of CGG-1 and CGG-2. Larkin, who was looking up and watching the exchange from his alcove, noticed the change in Resh's expression and exchanged a quick glance with Jekar, who was looking over at him even as he spoke into his headset, still communicating with low command. Balo stepped closer to the viewport, squinting slightly. His free hand dropped from his chin, fingers twitching. Everyone's focus honed in on him, every single mind in the room noticing his pause.
What in the blazes?
He muttered under his breath,
Speaking of
almost
blazes,
too slowly to hear. Prayerson followed Balo's gaze, her eyes scanning the distant platforms. To the untrained eye, everything seemed normal, just the vastness of space and the glint of distant lights reflecting off of the structures. Then her eyes widened as she finally spotted what had caught the Overseer's eyes. Or rather, she had failed to spot what should be there, just like he had. Balo snapped back into motion, his posture straightening with surprising urgency.
Larkin!
His voice was sharp now, all traces of the lazy, dismissive tone gone.
Open a top priority communication channel with CGG-1. Use the old laser link system.
He ordered.
Copy that.
Larkin said. Larkin's hands flew across the console, powering up the antiquated but reliable direct laser communication link.
It's an old beam, but it works.
Outside, on the hull of the ship, a panel slid open and a focused laser emitter emerged, spinning on a turret and carefully orienting itself towards the distant, floating shape of CGG-1. Once locked on, the emitter began to fire quick bursts of light, targeting an old reflective receiver on the surface of the other platform. Larkin held his breath as the signal attempted to connect. A few seconds passed, the waiting tone from his console sounding every few seconds. Then, distantly, a panel opened on CGG-1 and a similar emitter emerged from it, orienting back towards CGG-4. A confirmation tone sounded then as the link was established.
Laser link locked.
Larkin affirmed, raising a thumbs up. Moments later, static crackled through the speakers around the deck, harsh and uneven.
CGG-1, this is CGG-4. Clearance code star 5 beta beta. Do you copy? Over.
Larkin said, speaking into his headset, though all could hear him through the speakers. Nothing but static. Larkin frowned and tried again.
CGG-1, this is a top priority communication. Clearance code star 5 beta beta. The overseer of CGG-4 is present on the command deck right now. This communication is by his direct order. Respond immediately. Over.
Larkin glanced at Balo as he finished, the round Twi'lek now staring intently out the front port window directly at CGG-1. Suddenly, without any warning and making them all jump, a voice broke through the interference, distorted but unmistakably human.
Yay!
CGG-4, this is CGG-1. We're receiving you. Over.
Larkin's fingers hesitated over the keys. He looked at Prayerson's, then back at Balo, waiting for their reaction. The static had not completely dissipated, leaving the message grainy as if the signal was struggling. Balo's eyes narrowed. He stepped forward, glaring at the distant shape of the Golan defense platform.
CGG-1, this is Overseer Resh of CGG-4. Confirm your situation. We've had zero response from you for over 10 minutes. Explain this delay.
Problems.
More static. Then, the same voice responded, slightly distorted, the words strained through the interference.
Apologies. All systems are functioning within limitations. No serious issues to report. Over.
Said the man on the other side of the comms, a man whose voice, distorted as it was almost certainly not the same person that Larkin had spoken to before. Balo Resh stood firmly in front of the wide viewport, his back to the crew, as the crackling voice from CGG-1 continued over the comms.
No serious issues. What about non-serious issues, then? We can't communicate with you through the standard channels.
Resh demanded to know. There was a brief pause then.
We've had a power surge, Overseer.
The voice from CGG-1 began to explain.
It caused some disruptions to our standard communications relays. We'll have them back up in no time. Nothing to worry about, sir. Over.
From the moment I discovered the weakness of my own flesh.
It assured the Overseer.
Night, me and
Balo narrowed his eyes.
And the other platforms? You're telling me all of them had minor power surges at the same time?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All your base belongs to me.
That's quite the coincidence, isn't it?
The Overseer asked, his voice flat as he crossed his arms. The voice stuttered, the static worsening for a moment before it returned.
Well, sir. It's likely a related issue. We're working on it.
More pressing?
Balo interrupted.
I've noticed that your platform's retro thrusters aren't firing.
Right,
You're
Thor.
drifting. Protocol doesn't allow for all thrusters to be offline simultaneously.
The next response came more quickly this time, the voice rushing to fill the silence.
Yes, Overseer. This is just part of some maintenance we're doing on the thruster systems. It's nothing to be concerned with. We'll have them all back up shortly.
Oh boy.
Over.
Balo's jaw tightened, his lips pressed into a thin line. He leaned closer to the comm panel.
General maintenance standards clearly state that retro thrusters are to be shut down in a slow sequence, not all at once. You're destabilizing your orbit.
With all due respect, Overseer, the situation is under control.
Oh yeah.
Orbit destabilization is minimal, and will be reversed in a few minutes when maintenance cycles end. If you have a serious complaint, I can log them for my Overseer to...
Your clearance code.
Balo interrupted sharply, his eyes narrowing.
Give me your station's clearance code, now!
Hi, Warpugs. It's the old man here. Do you like war crimes? Do you like good times? Do you like Star Wars? Well, Coruscant is about to experience what it's like to see several suns. This is going to be bad. Remember, kids, it's not a war crime the first time, as per the fat electrician. Let's go.
The Overseer leaned forward, his tone unyielding.
CGG-1, clearance code, World 3, Gamma Beta.
The voice recited. Balo stood silently for a moment, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. His leku twitched on his shoulders and across his chest as he seemed to think. Then he nodded to himself and replied,
Yes,
right.
the Mechanicus would be
I'll
using
be signing
Bing.
formal complaints by the end of the day.
Yes.
And I'll be contacting you again in the next 10 minutes for an update. Carry on with your maintenance and get your Overseer on the line next time.
He then waved his hand at Larkin in a cutting gesture, and the communication abruptly ended.
Sir, that clearance code was incorrect.
Pearson's voice was low but urgent, barely masking the alarm she felt. Balo nodded slowly, still rubbing his chin.
It was last week's code, not the current one.
He
It's an old code, but it checks out.
affirmed. Pearson's eyes widened, and not just hers, everyone was paying attention.
Declare an orange alert. Report all of this to ground control. Give them a full report and send the audio recordings. Activate the primary external shields and cycle the Tabana gas on the primary weapons batteries. Everyone to their stations.
The Overseer said in a firm but low voice. Right away, hands went to keyboards and voices began to echo the yellow alert status into communicators, but some were far from satisfied with that response.
We need to go to red alert. Now. This could be sabotage, infiltration.
Officer Pearson stated, voice loud enough for all to hear. Balo held up a hand.
Slow down, Pearson. We're not raising the red alert unnecessarily.
He stated firmly,
Oh, it's
still
necessary.
rubbing his chin. Pearson looked shocked. Stepping forward a moment later, a cloud over her features.
With all due respect, Overseer, this is not unnecessary. The platforms have gone silent to standard communications, the thrusters are shut down, and they're using old codes. This could be a coordinated attack. We need to act now before it's too late.
She contended, but the Overseer did not seem moved by her argument. Balo's face scrunched in thought, his green leku twitching with agitation as he weighed the situation in his mind.
I'm not going to panic the entire system over this, not until we know for sure that it's the best way to address this.
All around me are familiar faces.
Let's check the other platforms first,
he suggested, nodding to himself. Prayerson's
Technically,
eyes
yes, long
flashed
shot.
with anger, but she took a breath.
Once they know the human, like, okay, so this is how ridiculous the Mechanicus is, and this is just how it is, okay? If the Mechanicus looked at Star Wars technology and it was fully humanity invented it, they came up with all the designs for it, and they did not consider it tech heresy, yes, they could. Now, let's get back to this war crime.
And kept her voice even.
We've lost contact with every platform, Overseer. We need to treat this like a real threat.
The Miralan
Oh, it's
officer
too late.
stated. Balo nodded his head, not disagreeing.
Larkin, start monitoring all incoming and outgoing communications between the platforms. If any messages at all are sent or received, I want to at least know about it. Jekar,
he said, turning to the Duros.
Secure a line with the Coruscanti Guard. Inform them of the situation in full. Everything from the moment comms were not being responded to now. Request action advisement from the acting head of the PSF.
He ordered calmly, coldly. Jekar nodded, already tapping into his console to establish the secure channel. Prayerson's jaw tightened as she stepped closer to Balo, her voice low and intense.
Rip-off, thank you, bud. Let's all give that other station's crew credit. They all managed to give the same wrong information under Imperial interrogation methods. Or so I would assume. How else would they have gotten last week's code instead of the right one? Rip-off, they didn't give them. They didn't give them. That crew is dead. That crew is gone. That crew is past gone. The reason last week's code was given was because it was the one that they found. They found used. I'm just saying, that crew is dead. That crew is gone. And this guy, thank you, Ripoff. Oh God, this is gonna be ugly.
Overseer, we cannot afford to wait. This is too coordinated to be
Exactly,
coincidence.
Prophet. Thank you, Ripoff.
Big.
Much appreciated, guys. Much appreciated
We need to go
tonight.
to red alert right now.
Listen
If
to
we wait
her.
Too long, it could be too late to stop whatever's happening.
She insisted. Balo turned to face her, his expression unreadable.
Prayerson, I respect your concern, but I'm not raising a red alert based on what we have so far. I'll check with the other platforms. If we find they are also reporting strangely, then we'll escalate this ourselves.
He explained to her. Prayerson blinked, suddenly realizing something.
Escalate things ourselves?
She asked numbly. That was why Balo had ordered Jekar to send an advisement request. Balo understood how serious this was.
Actually, so Ripoff, let me basically explain. The old code thing would have been. Codes are once they're out of date, or once they're used, security on them lapses. That's just how it is. That's why the old code is such a big deal. So security is, yeah. Did the Skywatch bring anything powerful to beat a trained Alpha Psyker, aka Yoda? Yes.
But he didn't want to be the one responsible for a red alert. He was trying to cover his ass when their whole job was to protect the planet.
Of course.
Her voice sharpened urgently as she pressed on.
Sir, the CGGs are Coruscant's primary defense now that most of the fleet is gone. If we don't act now, we'll be leaving ourselves wide open.
Ballo turned to face her, his expression tight with restrained impatience, his look alone cutting her off.
That's exactly why we can't afford to raise the alarm prematurely. If we trigger a red alert without fully understanding what's happening, we'll be causing unnecessary panic to the people.
He reasoned, voice tight before turning away, issuing more orders.
Somebody get in contact with the Admiral of the Corellian PDF and request some ship assistance.
The overseer
Exactly,
continued. Pearson's jaw clenched, but she followed behind him, her sense of urgency unrelenting. Overseer Resh was making a big mistake, and she couldn't just let it slide.
Sir, I'm trying to see the wisdom in your words, but that is absurd. Panicking civilians is a secondary concern at best. The real threat is...
She contended fiercely, right on his heels. Ballo rounded on her, his temper flaring.
Do you know what happens when we call a red alert?
He asked, his voice normally calm and at least mildly dismissive, now cold and hard. Pearson blinked at the sudden aggression and question, but nodded her head.
It triggers Protocol 9 and signals for the primary shields to...
She started to say, but Ballo interrupted.
The red signal lights go active,
he said, causing Pearson to knit her brows together in obvious confusion, but Ballo went on.
Visible to every other platform, satellite in orbit, and planet-side telescope. And there are 6 separate HoloNet services that do nothing but watch the Golan defense platforms.
He stated harshly, as if the problem should be obvious. Ballo took a step closer to her, his eyes boring into hers.
Coruscant will know within minutes that a red alert has been triggered in orbit. Over 1 trillion people live down there right now. How many do you think will lose their minds, start rioting, rushing to shelters, fleeing on ships the second they think that Coruscant is under attack? Millions could die in the bedlam before we even figure out what's going on up here.
He snapped. Pearson opened her mouth to respond, but Ballo didn't give her the chance. He raised a hand, silencing her, his tone final.
I'm not calling a red alert unless we are certain of what we are dealing with. We will handle this here in orbit without dragging 1 trillion civilians into it, unless the Office of the Chief of Security itself orders it, or something like a fleet actually shows up.
Oh, boy.
Do I make myself clear?
The silence that followed was heavy, Pearson's shoulders visibly stiffening as she bit back her frustration. Her eyes narrowed, but she gave a curt nod, turning back and walking to her station. Her fingers flying across the controls as she monitored the situation, chewing on her frustrations.
Prophet.
Overseer!
Larkin called out.
Rapid exchange of transmissions detected from CGG-3. 2 incoming messages have been intercepted. 3 outgoing messages have been detected.
He reported, twisting back in his chair, one hand on his headset.
What do the messages say?
The large Twi'lek man asked.
Unclear. We intercepted them, but they're coded. I can't make any sense of anything I'm hearing.
Okay.
Larkin stated, squinting as he listened to the jumbled, encoded message play in his ear.
Right. Larkin.
Ballo started, his voice regaining its typical calm
No, Ronnie,
confidence,
that wouldn't be the
but
case.
there was still an edge of tension.
Open a high-security priority channel with CGG-3. Let's see what we can dig up about those messages.
Okay.
Larkin nodded and began tapping on his console, setting up the communication link. The seconds dragged as he waited for the connection to establish, the static crackling softly over the speakers. Before the link could connect, one of the command crews sitting at a nearby station suddenly called out, his voice breaking the tense quiet. Sir, that cluster of SA-9s we were monitoring, they've just exploded! Pearson's head shot up, eyes wide, but before anyone could react, the crewman who made the report corrected himself, his voice shaking, trembling in his throat. No, they haven't exploded. Correction, they didn't explode, the man reported, making Ballo scowl.
Then what is happening? Did something shoot at them?
The overseer demanded to know.
They're firing on the planet.
I don't think so. Apologies, Overseer. The sensors are lagging behind the cluster. Adjusting tracking speed now. It looks like they've engaged primary sublight engines. By the many moons, Overseer, These sublight trails are the size of cities. The words seem to
all around me are familiar faces.
Filling it with thick, cold, disbelieving pressure. Ballo stared at the crewman, his face momentarily slack with disbelief. Larkin leaned forward, narrowing his eyes at the readings on his own screen, his breath catching in his throat.
Those aren't SA-9s. Those are battleships.
Oh,
He hissed,
no.
The silence in the room allowing his words to carry to each and every...
The time for Red Alert was about 3 days ago. Ripoff, thank you, bud. To quote Isaac Arthur, if in a population of 1 trillion, a niche audience of 1% is still 10 billion people. So yeah, $1 million on a plan-wide panic is probably underestimating things, massively underestimating things, Ripoff. Because you got to remember, when you have the more population you have in a city, any civic disturbance, any civic panic becomes magnified several times over.
Every single one of the crew on the command deck.
You didn't. You didn't.
Hey there, everybody.
No, you didn't. You didn't.
Much time. Thank you for listening to this latest episode. And as always, there are more to come. Though there will be a few changes, which is why I've stuck around at the end here to give you a little update. So, I can continue my series from what I can tell, but there will just need to be a couple of changes concerning the presentation and whatnot. And essentially, I'm going to be focusing much more on the audio aspects of the series. And those I might have to slim down a little bit too, but as an audiobook, I believe that I can continue safely. So, I also wanted to talk about the refocus of my priorities.
Really? Let's go.
I work in the travel industry, as you well know, at least a lot of you do, and it hasn't been doing super well. So, you know, in the last few months, the last several months, like, my patrons have really saved my life when it comes to supporting my work and supporting me.
Yeah, like, guys, my patrons, my members, everybody that sent super chats, you guys, you don't know how much of an effect you guys have, but it's monstrous.
And honestly, after the latest bout of effort in certain places, I have decided that I'm going to refocus my effort into 2 places. The first place is into this series, because like I said, my Patreons have literally saved my ass. I have only made it this far because of their support. It is crazy how bailed out I got. Like, in any case, the point is that it taught me a pretty important lesson, which is where the scales are and you know, who has my back right now and what can help support me right now. So I'm going to refocus my effort on this series. And now that I have received a little bit of instruction, I will progress in a way that won't offend anybody or do anything wrong, I believe. But with that said, the second place that I'm going to be focusing my effort is with a couple of you would already know this, but I occasionally run paid D&D games where I play as the game master and several players attend, pay a fee, and we play generally a pretty lengthy campaign, getting up to some pretty high levels depending on what system we play. Currently, I have created a Elden Ring campaign for the Fate Core system, a Bronze Age adventure campaign for the D&D 5e system, and I have a couple other things cooking in the pot. I will soon announce these and announce times when these would be played. These, of course, would be, for all intents and purposes, they're private sessions. You and about 4 other players will be playing together, and I will not be recording it or broadcasting it on YouTube, but it will be me playing as your game master. And if you're impressed with my writing and you enjoy my storytelling as an author, I think you will also be very happy to find the services I can provide as a professional game master. And I'll announce those as they sort of become available. And anyone who joins up with those, you would not only get to play in a very fun game where you probably get to meet several like-minded people, but also...
You mean I can find about, I don't know, 4 or 5 people that think that Tau should be obliterated as much as I do?
So you would help support me and my continuing work. So these are the places where my focus is going to go. These are the places that have been rewarding me for focus, and everywhere else, quite the opposite. So that is more or less the update that I wanted to give. I do believe that there will be some pretty good times for the channel going forward, now that I'm sort of giving up one front to focus on another. Many of you have probably noticed, the very huge slowdown in my ability to put out videos, and aside from more recent things, this is mostly caused from just really trying to work hard in an arena that is not really rewarding hard work. So, let's just leave it at that. So, I will see you guys in the future with more content. Oh yes, and one more thing. I will also be releasing a few more original works as I focus my mind into this. I will be off of YouTube much more than I normally am as I sort of try to recoup my brain and writing performance. And speaking of my writing performance, this is actually a thing that's a little bit difficult to get into, but part of what has kind of slowed me down, in addition to just, treading water, is that I haven't really been enjoying my own writing for a little bit now. I feel personally that my quality has sort of begun to slip in certain places and in certain aspects of my writing. And that is part of the reason why the refocusing is going to work, or rather why I'm going to make it work, because I want to love the writing again, and I want to be, not necessarily impressed with my own writing, but I want to feel like I'm still progressing. And, having all these puppies in my house and various dramas that have occurred in my personal life in between all of that, and, hospital things, and it's just been a whole deal for the past, 2 years, basically. And now it's finally starting to, on certain fronts it's slowing down, on other fronts it's heating up, and I'm now going to be more strategic about where I focus. And one of the big points of focus, which is why I'm speaking to you right now, is going to be the general quality of my writing. Okay. I really want to try to elevate it again.
I haven't seen that much of an issue with his writing, to be quite frank. I haven't, but yeah, I know the feeling. I really do know the feeling. Yeah, the biggest thing for me when I do a lore video, I just can't really I can't really put something out unless I feel like it's good. And I did that once where I was like, okay, I'm not sure this is good, but let me put it out anyway, and it bombed, and I try my best not to do it again. I look back on my older videos as I've evolved as a person who does lore. That's the reason. There's a lot of reasons why new videos haven't come out on the lore channel, but that is, yeah, I am my own worst critic by a huge measure. So I understand where he's coming from. You want to be proud of the work that you've done. You want to have a measure of satisfaction that you have done something good. And if you're not feeling that, that's a horrible sensation.
Because of that, I can't promise that the videos will come flying out because I'm not going to be sitting there industrially producing them. But I am going to be focusing much more on them. Far more of my time every day will go into them. And I will once more, have that time allocated and be focusing on not just writing them and getting the plot out, which I know pretty well in my head, but also, making it more enjoyable to read if I at all can. And with all of that said, thank you all for staying with me this long, and I will see you all next time.
I can understand where he's coming from with this so much. I beat myself brutally when it came to putting out a lot of the videos that you guys have seen in the past. Like, I have beaten myself savagely over this. This is not what I want to say. This is not how I want it to come out. There were certain lore series that I started and didn't continue because I was like, this is just not me. This is not how I operate. I can't be that serious guy. I can't be that, I'm the loud, angry guy. That is what I do. That is the kind of lore that I put out. So I understand where he's coming from completely. I do. I 100% do. Maybe when I have more time, because I have written serious works. I have written really good serious works, and I know they're good because, at some point I was going to share a link for a story that I wrote on Reddit, of all places. But I haven't decided if I'm going to revisit that or not yet. I haven't. And the bad thing about it is, even if I wanted to revisit it now, I just don't have the time. It is what it is. Yeah, wow. I get it. I massively get it with him. Warpugs, excellent chat for Fan. And hopefully we see the next part of this a little bit sooner, but I understand if it doesn't come out as quickly as I would hope. I really, really do. Guys, I hope you guys had a good time. I know I did. Thank you so much for everybody that just joined me for this. Ronnie, everybody's on Reddit. It is what it is, okay? It really is what it is. Yeah, I posted in the HFY forums. I wrote a story. I wrote a kind of a long story, to be honest with you, and it was actually picked up by a Texas speech group that put it all in. But in any case, Warpugs, I'm gonna head out from here. I hope you guys have a great night, and just know, Coruscant is about to experience good times for other people than them. I'll see you guys later. Subscribe to Fan if you haven't already, and I will catch you guys next time.